Without me realizing it, my Quaker meaning trained me to live without certainty. And I think that's going to be a true survival skill in this new era that we find ourselves in. Hello, welcome to this episode of Crunchy Anarchy, which is part of our Perspectives of Peace series. And I am Stevie Lynn. Nice to meet you if you're new here. So people who are Quaker curious, Quaker critical, or new to Quakerism are often baffled about how we get on in a cohesive way, that is, if the non-Orthodox Quakers, when we more or less reject creeds and dogma as a requirement of our faith. They wonder, what is the point of it? Like, aren't we really just a club of do-gooders, think-gooders, feel-gooders? And I'll be honest, I've struggled with this too. Because while I don't want dogma, I do want direction. And I've thought about it a lot. I mean, I do want freedom, most of all. I want freedom to receive direct revelation and experience in my own way, in a way that meets me where I'm at. I don't really want to be cued and directed or handed the answers by, a bridegroom, so to speak. I also don't want to color between the lines. I prefer more of a sketchbook approach rather than a coloring book approach. But I also want belonging. I also want a center of gravity of shared belief. And that's one of the reasons why I go to the meeting, because I want to belong somewhere. I want to be gathered with other people. I want to be like part of something real. And sometimes it has bothered me, when I'm sitting there in silence and I'm looking around. Well, I'm not really looking around while I'm sitting in silence, but but I know that, there are people around me, and it has bothered me because I don't really know what they believe. But over time, something has changed in me. Something has clicked. And just out of the blue, I've noticed that I have less need for certainty in my life. I don't know when that happened, but it happened. And I was just thinking about it actually today, that, maybe it is my Quaker practice that brought that to me. It's just something that happened because we gather in uncertainty to some degree, because we don't have the dogmas or the creeds. And I think it's such a good thing, actually, to be able to sit with uncertainty, to be able to accept that I could be wrong, that I can accept that I could believe something strongly one moment and later see it differently. And I can also accept that someone can be right about something, can be so right about a lot of things, but also very wrong about some other things. And that's okay. Where they're wrong, like in my opinion, doesn't discount them. It doesn't totally discredit them. Nobody's perfectly right. I don't require purity whatsoever. And of course, I may be wrong about it as well. And the other thing is that I can accept change. Everything changes. There really is no certainty. And I can still feel connected to spirit without having a perfect idea of what it is. And so now I realize that worshiping for about 3 years now in a setting that has no creed has literally trained me for that. I have been trained to accept uncertainty. Basically, it has cultivated humility within me, not in a self-hating way, but in a real way, in a grounded way. I don't need to be sure about everything. I don't need to lock everything down. I can just wait and see what happens. And I think part of that is that even though Quakers are very hard to pin down, because you meet one Quaker, you've met one Quaker, as the saying goes, we do share an orientation. And that orientation is a fruit of our shared worship and obedience to that still small voice within. We sit, we wait, we listen, we expect guidance, but make no presumptions about it. Some people call that guidance as coming from God. Some call it the light. Some call it the spirit. Some call it the inner teacher or the still small voice within us. Some call it the universe. And I've also heard it referred to in a fabulous way, which is the light fantastic. And since hearing that, I do think of it that way sometimes. I just think it's so great. The light fantastic. Cue in disco lights. Either way, the posture is the same. We wait for it faithfully and without preconceived ideas. And we do it together. Sometimes we discern our vocal ministry together. Like, we're not alone. When it comes to vocal ministry, that is speaking out of the silence. Like when we've been there and we're silent and we're waiting for guidance, we're waiting for God to speak within us. Sometimes we hear something or we perceive something. Sometimes it's for us and sometimes it's meant to be shared, and we need to discern that for ourselves. Sometimes it's the ego. Like, it could be all of it, you know? I mean, it could be any of those things. But if we spend some time with it and, you know, discern that it's not the ego and that it is God and it should be shared, then we share it, you know, with the rest of the meeting. But there's another level of discernment, because the meeting too will maybe challenge that idea or add to that idea, or maybe they won't say anything at all. So it's a very social way of doing it. And even in like some pastoral congregations, the congregants will challenge the pastor as well. Just you know, if they're led by spirit, that could happen. I know that is very shocking, you know, when to people from other types of religious sects, you know, that is something, if they witness that themselves, it could be very disorienting for them. But that's how you know, some of us work. So like I said, it's not spiritual individualism. Connection to others is very much part of the practice. Not to say that we can't practice silence on our own. I like to practice centering prayer on my own. And I've read some books by Richard Rohr who has really kind of helped guide me in this. I'll leave some links to that down below. And there are also online meetings that you can join. So I'll put some links down below too, in case, you know, I know not everybody has a Quaker meeting nearby or one that's appropriate, you know, for their condition. So there's another thing that I think is important when it comes to Quakers, at least what I've witnessed, and that is we don't really talk about soteriology, which is more or less what happens in the afterlife. It just never comes up. I've never heard it discussed in the meeting. There doesn't seem to be like collective belief on this, and we don't build faith around this, because it is a very certain belief. And you know, I know for me, I can't speak for everybody else, but I have no certainty in the afterlife. I don't really know what's going to happen, and I'm sure that people struggle with it. I don't know if struggle is the right word, but they wrestle with it. That sounds like struggle too. They wrestle with it privately. I'm sure they do. I know people have their own thoughts and fears and hopes. I think it would be just fine to discuss these things, you know, after a meeting or during fellowship tea or something like that, or even in vocal ministry. But it just never comes up. It doesn't seem to be the focus. I think this is important, because if you're in a faith tradition where the main focus is, are you saved? And are you sure? Then certainty becomes the goal, right? That's where a lot of people get their sense of comfort. But I think in Quakerism, the focus is faithfulness, obedience, fruit. And what are you doing with your life? Like, are you letting your life speak in a positive way, in a way that you're proud of? And how are you treating people? What are you being asked to do? And where does your will originate from? Is it coming from you, your ego? Is it coming from God? Is it coming from others? Which is also kind of ego in a way, but that would be another video. So as far as soteriology goes, I have had some visions about eternity during open worship. And I may share that someday. But, right, and I've shared it, but it's not something that I talk about a lot because I don't place a lot of importance on it, really. I have my own understanding of it. It was like a vision that was communicated to me in a customized metaphor meant for me and my 3D human understanding. So I only share it with certain people, lest it be used as a tool of something ungodly. It's just not something I want to impose on anyone. I don't want to use it as a way to confer status on me or convince people that I have the certainty. And I think that's also part of Quaker humility. We just don't treat personal revelation like it's proof. We put it through a discernment process. And that can change. It's living, God is living. Jesus is living. Anything can change. We are in a volatile, ever-moving, ever-changing world. So the point I'm trying to make is very simple. Quakerism has helped me live with uncertainty, and that has made a profound difference in my life. And that's why I'm talking about it today. Profound. It has helped me stop pretending that I know everything. It has helped me stop needing certainty in order to feel anchored, to feel comfort, to feel safe. And I want to talk about why that matters. Why it's so good to be able to live without certainty. Because it's not just a Quaker issue. This is a human issue. And right now, it feels like a survival issue. Like human race survival issue. And like I said, you don't have to be a Quaker to gain access to it. I've talked about Richard Rohr, there's contemplative Christianity, and then there's other, there's Buddhist ways or Baha'i ways. There's many different ways to, so I'll leave some links to some books by Richard Rohr. Also, there's another book called Testament of Devotion. It is a classic Quaker book. It's by Thomas Kelly. It's about cultivating a sense of obedience to God and cultivating like a Quaker practice all the time, no matter what you're doing, just in the background. I think it's a very important read because this obedience to God, it's not obedience to man. It's not obedience to kings or, to your president, it's obedience to God and finding that, that still small voice within that tells you what is right and how to treat people and how it helps you find your moral courage. And sometimes that does mean defying the laws of man. Now you have a little insight as to why I call this channel Crunchy Anarchy. So now we're going to talk about 8 ways your life improves when you give up certainty. Learning to live without certainty is important because it gets you closer to truth. When you need certainty, you start forcing reality to match what you can tolerate. But when you can live without uncertainty, you can face what is true, even if it's messy. You can just update your beliefs. You can admit where you were wrong, and you can stop protecting your story or your self-concept. Number 2, you listen differently. It really changes the way you listen. So if you're always defending a fixed framework, you're not listening, you're sorting. You're looking for what you can use to serve an argument, to buttress your worldview, and then you just discard the rest. But when you don't need certainty, you can let someone speak. You can just listen to them without instantly building a case against them. You can, or expecting, predicting, the next words that they're going to say, without, forcing them in your own mind, to perform to a category that you expect of them. You stop seeing them as an imaginary construct or like a character. You don't put them in a category. And you get a more nuanced view of them. You really, really see them. And they are also more likely to see you, at least over time. One of the things that I really love is that when you are in conversation with someone and you're just trying your best to really listen to them, to just not make any presumptions, just listen, just let the words flow out and you receive them openly. And if you do this, if you as you listen to them for a while, you just let them talk, you see a spark in them. Something happens where they realize that they are actually being seen, where they realize that you are truly listening to them. And it's like they just come alive. I think it's such a beautiful thing because, it's just like that you have really given them the gift of attention, which is one of the holiest things I can think of. Like Simone Weil said, attention is prayer. And if you can give that to someone, I think it's incredibly healing. If we spread that, it would be incredibly healing. Everybody being heard, everybody being seen, everybody sharing in nuance. And how exciting is that too? Like, because you never know, like every encounter you will have with someone, you never know, like what additional flavors you're going to find in them, right? Number 3, you stop using categories as armor. Or even like to not think. Certainty turns people into types, like we just discussed. It lets you dismiss them quickly. It lets you sort and dismiss, like this person's good, this person's bad, this person can serve me, this person doesn't, which is really kind of a bad start to begin with, because what you're really doing is sorting them based on how you can use them. It's a hangover of patriarchy, where we kind of exploit and extract, and when we put people in categories, that's what we're doing. We're figuring out how we can do that. How they quickly. When you can live with uncertainty, you can stay with the person in front of you without needing to decide what they are right away. Maybe you can discover that you don't need them to be useful in order for them to matter. Number 4, your faith stops being mental control. If certainty is the requirement, faith becomes a project of mental control. But God isn't a math problem. Learning to live without certainty makes room for trust, guidance, and obedience without needing guarantees. Number 5, your inner life gets quieter. A lot of mental noise is you arguing with reality. Honestly, it's like, but it should be this. And you have this like deconstruction of reality, when really reality is not about certainty at all, right? So when you loosen your grip, there's far less internal debate, less thought debris, more direct contact with what's happening. Because, like I say, you're not approaching things with certainty. That is not cluttering up the flow of information that you're getting. You are just listening, and you're taking it all in, and you're getting the whole truth, not just your vision of the truth, not just your version of the truth. You're getting the whole truth. And if you are living with more truth, you are responding truthfully. And I mean, we hope, you're responding truthfully, trying to listen to things without making justifications. If you are literally trying to seek the truth and with the intention of responding with truth, you are more likely to live a more authentic, godly, God-focused, love-focused life, I think. What do you think? I'm struggling with this a little bit, aren't I? 6, because of just the thing that we were talking about, you become harder to manipulate when you can handle uncertainty. I mean, a lot of the manipulation that's going on right now, online, in the media, with our leadership, is is because, it's made possible because people want certainty so bad. They want comfort, certainty, and convenience. Fear-based systems sell certainty. Fear-based systems offer simple stories, simple villains, simple answers. But when you can tolerate uncertainty, you don't need those shortcuts. If you have faith in God, which is actually sitting with uncertainty, if you have faith, you can lean into that. You can lean into Jesus, instead of needing the certainty that, leadership is promising you, and they're very much often lying. And that just puts you in a pickle, right? So if you have less certainty, you are in a much, much better place. You're less likely to be manipulated, and you're also more likely to get on better with others. Like, you can listen to another point of view without shaming them, without calling them names, without dehumanizing them or shutting down the conversation. We can have open dialogue. Everything, just so much flows from humility, having humility, and being able to live with uncertainty. And, number 7, you become safer for other people. When you don't need to be right about things, you don't need to dominate. You can actually have real conversations with the goal of getting to truth instead of, it being a pissing game. You can leave room for other people to process. You can let other people be right or wrong, impure in their ideas. You can let them be whatever and accept them with grace, because you don't need certainty from them, and you don't need them to be perfectly aligned with your own belief system. You can leave room for repentance. You can leave room for change. Yours and theirs. Number 8, you become able to grow. When you need certainty, you dig your heels in. You protect your position instead of learning. It's like being planted in cement. You're not going to go anywhere. When you are locked down by certainty, you protect your position instead of learning from others. You treat new information like a threat. But when you can live without certainty, you stay open, right, Smokey? Is that true? High five. Can you high five me? No. He's jealous of our relationship right now. So you can try new ways of thinking. You can change methods. You can evolve without feeling like you're losing yourself, because you're no longer defined by certainty. Growth requires openness, right? And openness requires the ability to maybe not know for a while, just wait. Maybe you'll get guidance. Maybe you're supposed to experience this uncertainty for a while, because, like I said, it's been a real teaching tool for me. So maybe that's the lesson. So when I say that Quaker worship has trained me to live with uncertainty, I don't mean it's made me passive. It hasn't made me vague. It hasn't made me unsure of myself or given me a very nebulous identity. It's made me more honest. It's made me more teachable, more grounded, more able to listen, more able to change, more able to be led, more able to lead. It's made it possible for me to have bridge building conversations with people where I can try and see things from their side and experience their pain and recognize that there's pain that I'll never understand that they've experienced. I won't, project my certainty of their story, my certainty that they're, whatever name you want to call them, that they're racist because they were trying to protect themselves instead of trying to protect someone else, because we just don't know. We don't know the breadth of their experience, the breadth of their pain, right? And because I don't need certainty, it doesn't matter that I don't know, that I can't judge if they've experienced enough pain or not, because it's not for me to judge. I don't need to be certain about their pain level and what they deserve or not deserve. And this matters right now because we're all being divided along lines of certainty. It's making us frantic. It's making everything crazy. We're divided. We're unstable. And instability is not the same as uncertainty. We're unstable because of certainty, because of this like driving need to have it. And you know, there's a lot of band-aids that we can put over everything. We could put band-aids over all the inequalities that we experience, but until we change the system and until we change the way that we act within the system, well, we change the system, but until we change the way that until we change the system and until we change the way we relate to one another, none of that's going to change. Because with certainty, we're always going to be prone to manipulation. Sorry, Lila is playing with her ball. Lila, come here, come here, come here. We're always going to be prone to government and, you know, corporate manipulation. We're always going to be pitted against each other. It's our Achilles heel, our lack of humility, and we need to change that. I hope that makes sense. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I loved having you along. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, because I would love to build a community here. I'd love to know your thoughts as well. And I will see you again real soon. Bye.